Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters in That podcast. I'm your host Brian, and joining me today is a special guest, Larry Lufer, hailing from Mr. Small's recording studio. How you doing today, Larry?
Oh, I'm doing great. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing good. Uh,
Good.
this is pretty cool too, because you're actually local. You're in Pittsburgh. You're on the north side, not too far from where CCAC is.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a couple blocks from Heinz Field.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. Uh, I always remember Mr. Small's because do you guys also own the Mr. Small's theater that's over in Millville?
Correct. Yeah.
Do you? I was only there once, and boy, that was all the way back in high school too. So it's there were some interesting memories there. That's when they had a couple heavy metal artists that showed up there. So the reason I reached out, I wanted to get to know a little bit about Mr. Smalls and the recording studio, and kind of get to know you a little bit more, and then also know like how the business is run, basically through your own words and from your experience.
Sure.
So I just got some questions for you. So we'll just dive right into the first one. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up at Mr. Smalls.
Well, I guess I grew up in Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, near Altoona, Johnstown area. I've always been in music since I've been a little kid. I grew up playing saxophone and then later guitar and was in bands and stuff. But I started after I graduated high school. I went to IUP for a couple of years, and I was studying communications media, which was the closest thing they had to basically music production. But it was more radio, television. It wasn't really what I was looking to do. So I started looking elsewhere. Um, it was a guy in Indiana. There was a little recording studio. I can't remember the name of it anymore. That told me about a place in Florida called Full Sail. So I looked them up. This was probably like 1997, 98. Went down there, did a tour at the school, and went there. Ended up going there. Just left IUP. A couple months later, started at Full Sail. Graduated there, and then ended up in Pittsburgh and found Mr. Smalls. And actually, I started as an intern and worked my way up, and now I own the place.
So why Mr. Smalls? I guess where did that name come from?
So Mr. Smalls, that name was, I guess, before the studio was around for maybe 2 or 3 years before I was involved. And my business partner, Mike, his son at the time, Jordan's now probably 26 or so. He's a lot older, but at the time he was a baby, and somebody called him Mr. Small or Mr. Smalls, and it kind of stuck, and that's how the name happened.
Not Biggie Smalls or anything like that.
Yeah, no, it was just his baby, and then as I guess over the years the name got passed on. When my son was born, he was Mr. Smalls for a while, and there was a couple other people, that we kind of passed the name on to. But yeah, it all started with my business partner, Mike's son Jordan.
That's pretty sweet. You did say you played saxophone. Back in your day, did you guys have like a little fun rivalry, we should say, with strings or orchestra?
So the school I went to, we didn't have any kind of strings or orchestra. It was more just band, like trumpets, clarinets, that kind of stuff. Yeah, we had no string stuff, but yeah, I played saxophone from I think about fourth grade up through high school, and I really enjoyed it. I just later on, I guess it wasn't as cool as guitar when I got it, especially in high school. So I kind of moved away from it and started playing guitar.
What did you start off with playing guitar? Was it kind of like Smoke on the Water, or did you just kind of do
Yeah, I
some?
guess I always played guitar on and off a little bit, like my whole life, but I didn't get serious about it till later in high school. And it was I did a lot. I played a lot of punk rock at the time. I was like the resurgence of '90s punk, and like '91, '92. So that's the music I played mostly. But I played a bunch of stuff. I played in a bunch of different things.
That's pretty cool. Uh, so let's jump into the studio. Tell us what makes Mr. Small's recording studio unique.
Well, I guess in Pittsburgh, I mean, we're unique in the fact of just the space we have. We're in what was used to be called Audiomation. The building we're in right now used to be a recording studio. It was probably built in the mid 80s from what I gather. I don't know the whole history of the building. I get bits and pieces from different people and different stories, but it's a great room. It was really built right back in the 80s to be a studio. All the construction's done right. And the room was designed by an acoustician that designed everything for sound and to produce music in. So the space is great, and also we got a ton of experience between me and Nate Campese, who's he's been working for me for over 15 years at this point. we've done hundreds of albums. A lot of local stuff, but also bigger regional and national stuff as well. So I think we have a lot to offer Pittsburgh, and we love Pittsburgh music. I mean, that's why we're still doing it. We love local music.
Yeah, I did see a couple other studios in and around Pittsburgh as well, I guess. Who would you say is your biggest competitor or competitors?
There's a couple other studios around that do great work. The Vault is a newer place. I've not ever been there, but I've heard good things about it. There's a place in the North Hills called, what is it?
Is it the MGM or something?
There is that. That's a place on the south side, the one you're talking about. I've never been there. I think that's a smaller hip hop studio, and I could be wrong there, but I think that's it. They mostly do hip hop, and it's a smaller place. There's a place called Tonic. I think that's in McKeesport. They do good work out there for sure. There's a couple of good studios around Pittsburgh for sure. Have good equipment, and there's a lot of studios though that are smaller, more, especially these days, more just vocal based. They do a lot of hip hop or track based things where they probably couldn't record a whole drum kit or something like that. Which that's what we do every day pretty much.
I don't know what the name of it is, but I think I did see the name, and I think after we're done with this call, I think I'll look it up and I'll probably text you.
Yeah, no, it's escaped me. I've actually been out there. I know those guys. I've met them before. I was only ever out there once, but I met them. It's just I just lost it. But yeah, it's a great studio out there. I'm pretty sure one of the guys that owns the place, actually, he won a couple Grammys and stuff. So I mean, they know what's up out there for sure too.
They know what they're doing. So
yeah.
So, talk about your clients a little bit. They kind of range from the punk rock and hip hop. Does it vary in the genres?
Absolutely, we do all styles of music. It's one day it's a jazz band, the next day it's a heavy metal band, and then even a country band or whatever. So we do a lot of different things, but most of it's local or regional. But because of the space we have and kind of the reputation at this point, when bigger artists do come to the city, we're definitely one of the places that they'll call or reach out to if they need to do some work.
Did you guys ever have any sort of issues with them, or I guess any sort of clients that came in and were a little difficult to work with, anything like that?
No, I guess I've never really had a bad experience with any clients. Not that I can remember, at least not in the studio. Sometimes the theater's a little bit different, which I'm not there anymore. I used to be there. I used to live there actually. I was there every day, but the studio, everybody's there to work, and usually it's pretty easy going. We're making music, you know what I mean? It's not like anybody wants to fight about it or anything. It's usually pretty smooth.
I just hear some of these stories way back in the 70s and stuff. I think it was Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath. They were saying they were sneaking drugs through their speakers and stuff just to get it in the studio so they could smoke it after they recorded their stuff and everything. So,
I'm sure. I mean, there's all kinds of stories, out there for old recording stories and stuff. But I've never really had a bad experience that I can think of.
Everybody's pretty chill. Yeah,
everybody's pretty chill. Yeah. Usually the hardest sessions are people that aren't prepared. They're just either they're a younger band and their skills not there yet, or they just kind of aren't ready. They didn't prepare the tracks or their music or write their lyrics fully. Then it can get a little frustrating because we're just sitting there waiting on them to kind of create it. But there's times where that's part of it too, though. Sometimes the studio, there are artists that like to go in the studio to create, so that's where the writing happens. But it gets frustrating when somebody expects it all to happen and they're not ready. That's I guess the worst thing that can happen.
Have you ever run into somebody who was stubborn, they didn't want to? Do you set things up a certain way, the drum set? It would be, this is where we want the microphones to be, so it gets the right sound and everything.
Absolutely, that's a part of what we do is knowing where to put the mics, how to position them, how to lay everything out that way. But honestly, it's all a team sport. I'm open to, if somebody's oh, I saw this on the internet, somebody did this way. I'm open to try it. It may or may not work, or I may or may not, ever do it again. But I'm open to that kind of thing. There's so many different ways that you can do things with music and sound in general that there are no rules. There's the only rule really is if it sounds good, you go with it. That's the important thing. So if the mic's not exactly the way I would position it, or I'm using a different mic or a piece of equipment or whatever it is. I mean, it's all about what it sounds like.
If it's causing your body to move and your head to bob back and forth, then you've at least done your job.
Yeah. No, I enjoy what I do quite a bit, for sure.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. Who's all your crew, I guess? Who's your team?
So I guess mostly it's a guy named Nate Campese. We've had different people on and off throughout the years, and there's a couple freelance engineers that'll sometimes do work at the studio and stuff like that. But between me and him, we do 98% of all the sessions at the studio.
You're the full-time workers, and then everybody, the other 2% are the freelancers.
Exactly. And the way we do freelance with freelance engineers is they'll just book time like a client would, and we just have somebody in there with them. I guess anybody that would be interested in anything like that, I don't open the studio up to everybody. I got to make sure they know what they're doing, that they actually have done some real work, not just in their bedroom, that kind of thing. But I am open to have freelance engineers do work there.
Do you guys have a little partnership with CCAC, since you're not too far away from it? So do you guys get some students in every now and again to kind of give them a little internship?
Not really. You'd be surprised. Like I've had a couple teachers that have brought down students just as like more of a field trip and that kind of thing. But yeah, I've not done anything with them on any other level than that, I guess.
It's also cool too. But you did mention doing stuff in the bedroom too, because these days now, you're doing like your own little home studio. You now got the audio interfaces, all the gears and stuff to like hook up, and you're able to like now create your own basement into your own studio. Do you try something like that at your place or anywhere in particular?
I don't. I get to work. I get to create music in my studio, so I have no need for a bedroom or a home setup. I just have no need for it. I deal with a lot of people that do sometimes. I mean, a lot of things happen differently these days, where they may come into the studio, we'll do drums there, then they may take the drum tracks and record like bass and guitars on their own, and then come back for vocals and mixing. Like there's more projects that are a little bit hybrid like that, where I might not be involved from start to finish, or they might do some stuff on their own, but I tend not to do anything other than at the studio.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's a lot more, what's the word, creativity, I guess, something to do in the big studio. I guess it gives you a lot more freedom to do this and that, as compared to like just doing it on a DAW at home or somewhere.
Absolutely. Like that. I mean, that's where all my equipment is. That's where all my microphones are. That's I'm used to that space and that environment. I have great monitors in there, stuff like that. So for me, there's to do anything real, I'm going to do it there.
All right. So let's walk through the process here. So I got, let's just say, 3-piece suit. Guitar, bass, vocalist, and, well, I should say the bassist is the vocalist too. It's kind of like a Rush, kind of a ensemble band.
Okay.
We're looking to start our band and try to get some music out there and make a name for ourselves. I guess we call you, and I guess what's the next steps?
So the first thing I try to do with everybody, which sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't, is have them come in for a tour of the studio and just talk to them, kind of like a pre-production meeting, figure out what they're looking to do, how many songs, I ask a lot of questions like, have they ever recorded before, where at, if they liked it, if they've done anything other than bedroom recording, stuff like that. And that's usually where I start with them. And then we come up with a game plan on when they're in the studio, what we're going to do. Because there are different ways you can record it, you go about the whole process. And what I've found from doing this over 20 years is a lot of times what gets the best result is what makes the artist the most comfortable. It's not doing it my way or it doesn't work. It's, if everybody wants to play together as a band, we can do it that way. We'll separate the guitar and the bass in different rooms. We got big glass windows so everybody can see each other real well, that kind of thing. I mean, I have bands sometimes they want to play everybody in the same room, which we can do as well. It's a different sound. It's a different way of going about the recording, but it's all totally possible. So I usually like to work with the band and with the artist and kind of figure out the best way that's going to make them the most comfortable and get us the best results. Because if they're not feeling how we're recording and they're all stressed out and they don't want to do it this way, it's going to come through. It's going to show in the recording, and we're not going to get the best possible sound and result that we could. So yeah, I like to work with everybody as much as possible.
Mm. And when it comes to costs, I guess you give them a free tour, right? And then
Yeah,
after,
the tours are free. And as far as studio time, I do an hourly rate. We actually just raised our rates here to $70 an hour in the new year. Just as everything's getting more expensive, I guess we had to too a little bit, but that's our going rate. And then sometimes, with different artists and projects, especially if it's a bigger project and it's going to be several days or something like that, then there's other options and other deals that I'll work out with them. But standard, our flat rate is 70 an hour.
does that also adjust with inflation? So when it's low, your price goes down a little bit, then I guess.
So I guess we started at $50 an hour back in like 2000 or not. I guess it was like 98 when the studio started. I started there about 2000, but it was $50 an hour until about 2013, 14. We raised to 60, and then just recently, like I said, at the beginning of the year, we raised to 70. So rates don't really go up and down. We tried to keep a very reasonable rate for our clients in Pittsburgh and everything, something that was affordable. But yeah, just with everything going on, we had to raise them a little bit this past year.
Yeah. Did you also have to raise it up because of COVID when it initially started back in 2020?
So yeah, COVID was not easy for us, especially at the beginning. Recording studios were on the list of non-essential businesses, so we had to close. We were closed for a few months, which was tough. It was nothing coming in. I was doing a little bit of work for people on my own, where I would just go in and mix something for them or do something like that. But we were pretty much closed for probably 3 months or so, but then even when we were able to open, it was really slow. There weren't a lot of people that wanted to come into the studio and get together or do anything, take their mask off and sing into a microphone or anything like that. It just, so it was rough. But we made it through and everything is great now. We're back to normal. Everything's super busy right now. So it's, I guess not everybody made it through, but we did. We're lucky.
Was that when you said you're a non-essential business? Is that something that the governor decides, or I guess
Yeah,
how does that work?
The state put out a list of non-essential businesses, basically businesses that were technically supposed to close, and recording studios were on that list. So I closed. I don't know if every recording studio did or not, but I felt that we should, just based on everything that was happening. And at that point too, nobody really knew anything about COVID or how bad it was or what was going on. So, we did what we were supposed to do.
Did you guys have to adjust your strategy, I guess, when you opened back up and you weren't getting a whole lot of in-person contact? Did you guys have to then reach out to other musicians, or did they reach out to you and then you kind of had to go back and forth with getting the tracks and everything?
Yeah, we did. We definitely did a lot more remote work when we first started, where a band maybe wouldn't come all together. Maybe just one of the members would come in and record his parts, and then would work on it. It really just depended on the artist and what their comfort level was with being around each other and other people like us. So, it all worked out. It was challenging, I guess, is the best word for it. But it was a matter of just figuring out the best way to work through everything and just make everything happen as best we could.
Do you think you're going to keep this a hybrid model going forward, or do you think you just want to go back to more of the in-person kind of face-to-face, and then they're in the studio?
I mean, the in-person thing is kind of making itself happen. People want to be in the studio. It's very hard to do something, I guess, like over Skype or anything like this. I mean, technically recording this way is almost impossible because you get latency. There's a little delay between what I'm doing right now and so you can't really play music together or do anything like that. So the whole remote thing is really hard unless somebody is, you send them a track, they put their part on the track, then they send it back to you. But to do anything over the internet was extremely difficult.
Yeah, I could see why, because even this little software that I'm using for our discussion here, it is off a couple seconds because I think it's still picking up everything. So it
exactly,
is,
yeah.
I don't want to say latency, but it's at least picking it all up and then just saying okay, this is what they said, and everything like that. So I could see what you mean with the difficulty of trying to do it over the internet or over Skype in this case. So
yeah.
I guess going back to the artists and stuff, after they put out the album, I guess how do you do that first? Do you just like put it out on all the major streaming platforms now, or is it like a?
So at this point, it depends on the artist quite a bit on what their demographic is. Who they're trying to reach. Younger bands are doing everything pretty much exclusively online. Sometimes they'll make vinyl, and even cassettes. I've had a couple bands that have recently made cassettes, more of just like the retro thing, I guess, like the vinyl. But it's almost all online. The only people that really are making CDs are bands that have their clients or their audience is older, where they're actually going to buy them. Or, sometimes some younger bands will make like 50 CDs just to have at shows, just, for something. But people aren't selling a lot of CDs and really not making a lot of CDs at this point.
Yeah, but I didn't know vinyl was kind of making a comeback. I guess people were getting interested in collecting those again. So I think I could see why they would want to do the vinyl. CD, it just seems like it's only good if the artist gives their signature on it. So after that, it's just
yeah, a lot of that stuff at this point is it's good for a show. Like if you're playing a concert or a show somewhere, then that gives somebody something physical they can buy. But as far as like selling CDs online or through another outlet, it's really difficult.
Yeah, these days it's more like the iTunes, Spotify, now Amazon Music,
exactly.
Which I use. Yeah, so that seems to be where it's at. Do you continue to support these artists afterwards if they so choose, like promotion, sponsorships, or anything like that?
So we don't really get into that. We get in, I guess our part of the process is from the creation of the music up through the mastering to the point where we will give the artist like the product that would be duplicated. We don't even do like duplication, CD duplication or anything. They would go somewhere else for that. Now we do things with like sometimes help bands with shows at the venue or something like that, but we don't do a lot of promotion. We get them the product that they can promote, and then that's theirs to do with after they leave the studio.
Have you ever had like any artists who would come back and say like, these guys were awesome, let's do it again for like our second album, for instance? Do they sometimes come back? Or
Oh, absolutely. We have tons of return clients. And the way music's being recorded right now too, especially a lot of bands aren't doing full albums at this point. They're doing 3 or 4 songs at a time, or sometimes even just a single, because it is all online and people aren't buying the whole album. People aren't making albums like that anymore. At least a lot of people. It still happens, but it seems like the trend these days is fewer songs and release maybe a song a month over a year rather than release one album for 12 songs at once kind of thing.
Yeah, it seems like when they do anything over like 10, it seems like they'll take like 3 years or something like that in between before they release like the next album. So I think doing like extended plays and stuff like that, you at least have some room to like say like, okay, we'll just do this 1 year and then we'll do something next year. So you at least still have more material and you keep your audience, I guess, on
it does.
Something like that.
Yeah, it does engage the audience a lot more, and I think that's why a lot of artists do it. It seems like everybody's attention span's shorter these days. The internet and the content, everything is coming at us so fast that even music's the same way. Like if you release an album and wait 2 or 3 years to release another one, most people are going to forget who you are. Especially if you're not a bigger act. If you're a local band, you gotta keep that constant contact and momentum and everything like that going.
I know you just kind of lose. I know my mind kind of trailed off whenever it's like those long lectures and your mind just starts trailing off. You start daydreaming and stuff like that. So I see what you mean.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So you did talk about how COVID did impact your business. Did you guys still have to kind of delve into any taxes or anything like during the times you were closed, or was there not as bad financially? After?
We definitely had to apply for some of the loans and some of the stuff like that was going on to stay in business for sure. And when people started coming back, there was a lot of, we had to do a lot of work just on like cleanliness. And people wear headphones and they sing in the microphone, so everything had to be cleaned constantly and that kind of thing. So it definitely changed how we did things from day to day. All that was just. After every person that took the headphones off, you had to go spray them with alcohol, that kind of thing. So it was a lot more intense that way for sure.
Just spray with all the sanitizer and that, and just get the cloth out and have a garbage
Oh
bag.
yeah, everything. I mean, yeah, because it's, especially you can't sing with a mask on. You know what I mean? Even playing, if you're a drummer or something, you got to be able to breathe. So
Yeah.
It was tough that way.
Yeah, I know. Watching on Facebook, I'm seeing. I think it was some people. They're just saying in Canada, because I guess their rules are a little bit more stricter. People are still wearing masks. You see them in the pools. You see them swimming in the ocean.
Oh, really?
They're wearing the mask and everything. I'm thinking like, how are you supposed to breathe with that thing on? Man, I'd be taking off. It's like almost waterboarding with those things on if you're in the water. So,
I would be. Yeah, that would be tough. Yeah.
I guess how hard were the COVID rules in the beginning? Did you guys kind of adapt over time to say okay, we need masks in here, or did you guys kind of ease off?
We pretty much right away, whenever after we closed and then reopened, we were pretty much right away. We were just you have to wear a mask if you want to come in. And then we just went with that until everybody started feeling more comfortable. There's still people that come in that want to wear masks, and it doesn't bother me if they want me to throw a mask on. I have no problem doing that. And then there's other clients where they're totally comfortable. They've been vaccinated or whatever, so it doesn't bother them not to wear the mask. But I'm okay either way, personally.
Yeah, that's good. That's definitely good. Do you guys own the Mr. Smalls feeder? I don't know if I asked that.
Yeah, so that my business partners, Mike and Liz, they own and run the theater, and then I do the studio. I run the studio and own the studio. So we're all connected, but we are technically, I guess, two separate businesses.
Do you ever go down and help out with getting stuff set up for bands, or
not anymore? I used to, like I said before, I used to live at the theater. Because the theater is the church, the rectory house, and then we have a schoolhouse building, and the schoolhouse building had 2 apartments in it. And I lived in one of them for several years when we first started. We were still kind of building everything and getting the place off the ground. But now that I've moved to the north side, I'm just never there. I'm always on the north side. I'm not in Millville. I'm there a couple times a year, but I'm not there nearly like I was.
Have you visited recently? Because I don't know if they've really changed much since I've been there, but that was back in high school. So it's been.
In the last couple of years, they've done a ton of work there. They've expanded the capacity. There's the Funhouse venue now, which it's like a secondary venue in the schoolhouse building behind the actual church. So they do smaller, more local shows there. I think that place probably holds 100, maybe 125 or so. And then the bigger shows are in the theater. They can even do two shows simultaneously. They do that sometimes as well. And there's a coffee shop there now. So they've definitely been expanding and growing and kind of the same thing with COVID, just, adapting to what's going on.
Do you ever go out to some of the shows at Stage AE, for instance, and try to see some of those bands and likes to come through and see hey, maybe we can try to get them to come in our studio for a session or something?
Sometimes I guess it's hard to talk to those bands a lot of the times. You have to get backstage, or you'd have to be able to talk to them that way. But actually, sometimes those bands will call me because they're in town. They know they're going to be here for a day or two, and they're working on something, so they'll want a studio to work in and do that. But that just happens out of the blue. You never know when that call is going to come.
Are you going to any shows this year? Because
let's see. I know the one show I'm really looking forward to is Rage Against the Machine. I'm going to go see those guys. But we just recently saw Ghost. I don't know if you knew who they are.
Swedish metal band?
Yeah. My wife's a big fan of those. It was a really good show. It was cool. There were a lot of stage theatrics, and it's like a whole production show. It was neat. We saw Green Day and Weezer and Fall Out Boy in the fall there. That was a really good show. My son's a huge Green Day fan, so that was actually probably the first show that I went to since COVID, I think, was that one.
Yeah, my first show is actually Mastodon and Opeth. They're coming to Stage AE, and it's near the end on a Sunday, April 24th. So I'm actually super stoked to see it. But then I got another one. Then I got another one 2 weeks after. It's the Gojira and Deftones coming at the Peterson Event Center. So I'm actually pretty happy, and those are actually my first shows in a long while because the last ones I've been to were Kiss and The Who, and those were. That's actually going to be going almost on 3 years because that was all the way back in 2019. So you can definitely see how COVID changes things, and now you just want to get back out and explore again.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it hurt. I mean, even huge artists like that, it hurt pretty bad, yeah.
I guess what's your plans for the Mr. Smalls studio and you and your coworker, I should say?
I mean, in the future, we just want to basically just keep doing what we're doing. Keep making good music, making albums or singles or whatever we're doing with bands and artists, and yeah, just trying to hopefully find an artist that will kind of put Pittsburgh back on the map again. There's been a few over the years that have done really well and been successful, but it'd be great to have more spotlight on Pittsburgh, 'cause there's a lot of great talent in this city. There's a lot of really good bands. It would be awesome to have a little more notice, I guess, from the rest of the world.
Yeah, you tend to notice that with like all the cities, really, because everybody knows like the Nashville or even in Vegas or LA with like the rap scene, and then there's the country scene in Nashville. Is there a specific scene you think there is in Pittsburgh, or do you think it's just a wide variety?
It's a pretty good variety. I mean, traditionally there's always been a pretty good jazz scene in Pittsburgh. There's definitely a pretty big hip hop and rap scene in Pittsburgh. And then yeah, even like just like rock and that kind of music. There's a pretty good scene. There's a lot of variety, I guess, in Pittsburgh music. There's a lot, and there's guys too that are almost kind of doing their own thing, that have some really neat, interesting things going on that are local. It's just cool to see.
Do you think it'll ever rise to the prominence like Nashville kind of has endured over the long decades?
I think that the talent's here. It's just a matter of, I guess a little luck and a little bit of a notice from the right people. And I mean, it could happen for sure. It happened in different states like Austin and Atlanta and stuff. They had like just booms of music explosions for a few years. It'd be awesome to see that happen here.
Absolutely. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Here's hoping.
Yeah.
All right. So we've reached this part of the podcast where now I give my interviewees a little bit of freedom. So here, is there anything that you would like to ask me, or is there anything that you would like to just get off your chest?
Not that I'm I guess, and this is probably something that wouldn't be put on, I guess, but I guess, do you edit this at all, or is it just kind of free, or I didn't know the process of how you kind of produce what you're doing. Yeah.
It is free. I just use this software and I just drag it into my editing software and I just post it on social media. It's really all it is, and you can share it. I don't know how much of a social media presence Mr. Small's recording studio has, because when I initially reached out, I did it through Messenger, and it's like we don't go on Facebook too much, so I don't think.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, I got away from using Facebook a lot. It seems like these days it's just full of politics, and it's pretty. I guess honestly, I think it's pretty toxic a lot. Just a lot of what goes on there. So I mean, I still engage with certain like clients a little bit on there, but usually it's either on the phone or email or that kind of thing. We do Instagram a lot, but yeah, we don't go on Facebook too often.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I had a couple of family members of mine kind of said the same thing too. They said Facebook was just becoming that toxic environment because there's the political BS and stuff, and you just really wish it wasn't like that. I know.
Absolutely, but it is what it is,
Yeah, Instagram seems like the other replacement. I don't know about Twitter. Like, Twitter is such an odd one. I just go on it every now and again just to post stuff and then just leave it there and see what happens, really.
Yeah, I don't really use Twitter. I think my Instagram is hooked up, so when I put something on Instagram, it probably sends a tweet, but I don't use Twitter at all.
Well, do you also use TikTok or?
No, I haven't really used TikTok too much.
No. It's something on the side. I post every now and again, but it seems a little fun at times because you just can post like a 3-minute video, or I don't know if you can do pictures, but I know I posted just videos on there from time to time just to like see how it goes, and sometimes I get a good amount of views from it too. So.
Okay, I have to. Yeah, I'm not. I guess I'm not too big on social media myself. I don't use it personally, barely at all. I use it more for the business than anything.
Yeah. So, I guess, was there anything else before we jump to the last question?
No, I don't think so.
No? All right. So, last question for you. What sort of hopeful message can you give to people who perhaps are impacted by COVID, or probably more or less impacted by it, who are just coming out of it, and they're perhaps studio managers, kind of like yourself, and they're trying to like either get back on their feet or just kind of pick up where they left off, so to speak. What sort of message can you give to those people or any people who are struggling?
Sure. Well, I think the only thing we can do is just keep pushing and plugging along. I mean, COVID's something that nobody saw coming, nobody has any control over, and it impacted everybody. And I'm sure there are studios out there that probably didn't make it, that weren't as fortunate as we were to come through it. And that's a shame, but it's just something you just got to keep going until you can't. I don't know what else or what other advice I could give than that, because I don't know what else you can do. You just gotta. It's the reality of what it is. So you just gotta accept it and keep going and try to come out the other side.
Yeah, some of the people I've also interviewed on my podcast here, they said COVID was also a blessing in disguise because it allowed them to expand and do other stuff, also primarily on YouTube, and try to build a presence on there and do any sort of projects or engage in music projects. Maybe they wanted to try to release music on their own, stuff like that. Did you also have any blessings in disguise during?
So, I guess from an artist standpoint, I could see that. The one thing that I did see a lot of artists that stayed at home and wrote a lot of music. So when we opened back up, there was a lot of things people wanted to record because they were cooped up and couldn't record anything for a long time. But as far as our business goes, it's so you have to be there. I guess you have to be in the studio to make it happen. So when you can't be in the studio, it's really hard to have the same kind of energy and the same kind of thing happen. It's just not the same.
All right. And would you like to give a final shout out to any groups that have come through your studio?
Oh no, anybody that has come to the studio. We'd love having all styles of music. We love having local Pittsburgh bands. We got some great ones coming up. I'm excited to have Anti-Flag back here in a couple weeks. I did an album with them when I was started out in my career, when I was probably 2003 or so, the Terror State album. I don't know if you're familiar with Anti-Flag or not, but
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, they're a pretty successful band in Pittsburgh, punk band, but they've been around since the 90s. Early 90s, so they've been doing it for a long time. They're all great guys. I'm really looking forward to that. I like those guys a lot. So it'll be fun to start working on their next album with those guys.
All right. And final words before we close out this podcast?
No, thank you for having me on here. And it was a good time. It was cool to answer your questions. And yeah, I hope a lot of people see this and like it.
Yep. And this was a damn great interview. So Larry, awesome. I want to thank you so much for coming on. And I wish you and your partner in crime the best of luck going forward. And everybody, I guess, where can we find out about you guys? Just for your website, or is there any other stuff?
Yeah, the website is the best way to get a hold of us or see pictures and information about the studio. It's just mrsmallsrecording.com. Or if you just Google Mr. Small Studio, it pops up. It's going to be even Pittsburgh Recording Studio, whatever. We're always right at the top. So we're easy to find, and we're easy to get to too, right on the north side.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome.
Thanks again, Larry. You heard from this guy where you can find him at. All right, Larry, I want to thank you so much again. Stay safe. Stay tuned.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right, take care.